Right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the BSB Bookathon. And we're very, very excited. And we are talking about mixing multiple genres. And we have some experts at that who we are going to quiz. So do put those questions in the Q&A. I'm going to go around and let everyone introduce themselves because it's better than listening to me talk all night. So Ali, can we start with you?
Hi, I'm Vali. I have written a couple of series. The one I think everyone knows the best is the Devil series, King Casey and crew. My latest book is here, Calumet, which is every nightmare you've ever had of going back to your high school class reunion.
Yep, there's quite a few of them. VK.
Welcome. Hi, I'm VK Powell. I am a retired police officer and I write romantic intrigue, and I'm happy to be here.
Excellent, short and sweet. I like it. That's like one of my introductions. Eden, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I've got 4 books published with Bold Strokes. My 4th one has just come out this August. And yeah, I live in Kent. I've just moved here. It's great.
I've lived in Kent. It is great.
It's all right, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not bad. A bit posh in places.
Not where I am.
Where are you?
North Kent.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. No offense. Gun, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Well, I live in Sweden. I'm the resident Swede, and I write romance, but I also write science fiction with romance entailed. So this is my latest book. It's the first in a trilogy. It's a contemporary sci-fi, which is a new take for me. So, and I think I've written somewhere around 28 books with Bold Strokes or thereabouts. So.
Very impressive. And last but not least, Carsen.
Hi, my name is Carsen Taite. My 29th novel comes out in October. And so I have a mishmash of romance, contemporary romance, political intrigue, mystery, and romantic suspense.
Slacker.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you put out 18 books this year.
Yeah. Ali is just going for some kind of record or something, or exhaustion, one or the other. Okay, so we have a few questions to get us started. So firstly, what genre do you mainly write? And do you include a romance subplot in every book that you write? We should start with Ali because she's got a lot of books to get through. So
I write mostly in romantic intrigue. So I not only romance people, but I kill a lot of people in my books, which kind of blows off a little steam. This latest book, actually, I don't usually do that, but it's gotten a lot of people writing about it. And it's a different kind of romance. So that, because I think a lot of people got mad that the character starts in a very stable relationship and then goes back to her high school class reunion, and they thought it was going to then turn into a second chance romance, which would mean cheating on both parts. So that I did not do that. Don't worry, that did not happen. But yeah, most every book, this one included, I mean, even though the romances are already stable, I mean, they're in a stable relationship when the book starts, has romance in it, because every life should have a little romance in it, don't you think?
Absolutely. So Gun, what do you mainly write, and do you include romance in all of your books?
I actually normally do every other book. So every other book is romance and every other book is a sci-fi. Right now, though, I'm writing the last of a trilogy of this contemporary sci-fi stories. So that's 3 sci-fi in a row, because as it's a trilogy, I wanted it to feel cohesive, and I was afraid of losing my momentum if I stuck a romance in between. So it's normally it's every other book.
Interesting. Yeah, and I know what you mean when you want to sort of keep them all together, and the readers will want that as well. Obviously, the first in the series is out now, so do grab that. Carsen, how about you? What genre do you mainly write?
So I looked at all the books that I've written, and the predominant majority is romantic suspense, but all of them include a romantic subplot, even the mystery, political intrigue. I think that, like, I've always enjoyed mystery series, or books that weren't necessarily categorized as romance that have an element of that in them, because I think it shows off a lot about the character. I mean, how they love or lust or whatever tells us a lot about who they are as a person. So even if it isn't a romance per se, I think that's an important way or vehicle to show character development.
Yeah, very true. Eden, how about you? What do you mainly write?
Romantic horror. So.
Is that a genre?
It is now, yeah.
Creepy romance.
Yeah. I'll explain. So yeah, basically just I don't know, like a kind of a thriller. I mean, like I've written one about zombies, and then I always sort of pop a romance in there, just to light the mood a bit,
Well, why not? I think you should spearhead that genre. I like it. Yeah. Well, you're not the only one. I know a couple of other authors who do that as well. So yeah, there's definitely a niche for that. VK, how about you? What genre do you mainly write?
I'm a romantic intrigue writer, and I think I write romantic intrigue mainly because I have to have something to break up all the action. So I have to put a little bit of romance in there, to carry the story along a little bit. And, as Ali says, everybody needs a little romance in their lives. And I like the romantic element, as well, being able to see the characters grow and see how they react in certain situations in the intrigue, and, the whole thing rolling. I like that.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, so our next question is, roughly what percentage of your books is romance? So how do you sort of split up your romantic intrigue or your zombie apocalypse from your romance? Gun, do you want to start with this one?
I'd say with the sci-fi that's been more space operas, maybe 50-50 almost. But with this latest trilogy, I'd say that maybe the romance is somewhere around 35-40% maybe. Because there is a much more of a, to speak in television terms, it's a big cast, and there are several pairings and so on. So and they're going through some unusual things. So there is romance, but it's not at the forefront, I wouldn't say, but enough for you to care about them surviving, because that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Unless you're a zombie, because that's already done for.
Well, we may well get to that. We may well. I didn't think that was where this would go, but there's a possibility.
We can love forever. Never die.
Well, exactly. I mean, I'm not really up on the exacts of zombieism, but we'll find out. We'll find out during this panel. Carsen, roughly what percentage of your book are generally romance?
So I completely read your question wrong when you sent it to me, and I was thinking what percentage of my oeuvre was.
You can answer that if you want.
It's roughly 17.24%.
Roughly. Are you rounding up?
I am. that are just pure contemporary romance. So taking those out, I can't do math. So the whatever's left over after you subtract that from 100 is the combo. And out of those combo blend books, I would say it varies. I mean, there's some of my romantic suspense where romance has been more like 60-40, and then some where it's 40-60. So but I would say it hovers around those numbers. I said a lot of numbers for someone who doesn't like math. So there you go.
Well done. You can have a rest later.
Thank you.
Eden, how about you? How much is horror and how much is romance?
So over the course of the sort of 4 books I've written, it's probably got progressively larger in terms of the romantic element. So like my first book, there are a couple already, so not an awful lot. And then kind of as by this one that I've got out now, I'd say 40-50% of it potentially is about the romance. So yeah, it seems to be playing a bigger part.
Yeah. And as the zombies are falling away, the romance is
Guys off.
Ali, how about you? Do you have a sort of rough percentage in your enormous back catalogue of this year?
I think, well, Counting That was number 30. And then there's one coming out in October. So even though they're romantic intrigue and there is death, and I've fed people through a meat grinder, I would say probably 99% of them have like a romantic thread that runs through them. I mean, even though you have the ability to run someone through a meat grinder, it doesn't mean that you're not looking for love.
And our eyes met over the top of the meat grinder.
Exactly.
As 1,000 stories of stuff.
One of the things I love to write about is like, that kind of how you get to that relationship that we all would like. Maybe we don't achieve, but at least you could achieve it in a book. So I do love to write romance. I mean, some of them, probably 30% of them are straight romance where no one dies. Those, I love to write them. I find the other ones a little bit more interesting and kind of challenging to write. But I would say if you're looking at total romance, it's about a 30-70 split.
Interesting. Okay, so VK, how about you? What kind of percentage?
Rough guesstimate, I would say 60-40, 60 being the intrigue, 40 being the romance. Sometimes it tends a little more depending on the characters and the story, but yeah, I think I'm a kind of 60-40 split.
That's interesting. So we're all kind of in the same area of how we're splitting the genre, whichever genre it is, and romance. That's interesting. We have a question from the audience from Joni, who asks, do you find it hard sometimes melding the two genres, romance and whatever the other genre is, or does it naturally fit together for you? Shall we start with Carsen?
Sometimes it usually depends on the characters' roles. Like I've written, I'm not going to count numbers, but I've written a number of books where the characters like really can't be together, like they're on opposite sides of a case in a trial, or they're a cop and a suspect, or, so it makes it like, oh, this was a great idea when I thought about writing it, but now I sit down to write it and like, how the hell do I get these people together? Because they're not supposed to be. And that's a great conflict, but it's also so much harder to overcome.
Yeah.
So, those kind of books where the conflict is really juicy, sometimes it's much harder to figure out how to get them in the same room, and also to get them together in the first few chapters so that your readers start to want them to be together. I mean, you have to find the situations where they would have to be in the same place at the same time so you can see their interaction and even be interested in wanting that chemistry to blossom. But you know what I mean. Explode, catch on fire. Okay, I'm done.
Very violent. Sounds like you self-sabotage as well, to be honest. Very hard. Why are you doing that to yourself, Carsen? VK, how about
write
you?
a contemporary romance?
Yeah, honestly, it's a lot easier, trust me. VK, do you find it hard sometimes melding those two genres together?
I do, but I think I have the opposite problem that Carsen has, because I have trouble keeping them apart. I have trouble getting them together. I have trouble keeping them apart, because if it's going to be a romance, then they should be together. But that doesn't always work well with the story. So sometimes it is a challenge, and I have a tendency to go off on the intrigue path a little bit, and then I'll say, oh, wait a minute, where'd the girls go? I have to come back and, pick up that thread. So it is a challenge, I think. And if you're plot challenged, or if you're character challenged, which I tend to be both, depending on the situation, it can be challenging to try to keep all that stuff going together as it should. Yeah.
You've just raised a really interesting point there. By show of hands, how many of you are plotters?
I didn't raise my hand, I swear I didn't.
Even on occasion.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm.
That like a little frown you got going on.
What about you, Amanda?
I'm a plotter, but I
Oh,
write
good, thank
contemporary
God.
romance, so
Okay.
although I have written mystery and I had to plot that, I would not be able to go back onto the thread.
Yeah.
So wow, interesting.
And
I think,
admire
how
people.
much easier my life would be if I was a plotter, but
Yes.
Yeah, you'd be releasing 27 books this year if you knew where you were going with all of them. Ali,
Don't do that.
yeah. Ali, so do you find it hard sometimes to meld the two genres together?
No, I think that what I do, the way I do it is I'll write, and then I actually write longhand, and then I type it. And so as I type, I self-edit a little bit. And then I go back, and you have to, since I don't plot, I have to figure out what the hell's happening. So the only plotting that I actually do is, as Carsen would know, I think we have this in common. We own more little notebooks than any normal person should own. So I write a little synopsis of what is happening in each chapter, so that I can not like VK said, go too far off into intrigue or go too far into the romance where it doesn't really move everybody loves to read sex, but it you need stuff that moves the plot forward as well. So that's my secret.
Okay, I'm going to pause again. By show of hands, how many of you write longhand? Just Ali. I thought so. Wow, that's impressive. Do you write the whole novel longhand and then type it all up?
Yep, I have a whole box of notebooks. I'm a weirdo, so it has to be a certain kind of notebook. The only thing that changes from book to book is the pen.
Okay, you and I need to have a chat at some point, because I need to hear this entire process from start to finish.
I keep a notebook for every book, but
Yeah,
it's
I do that. I mean,
actual notes, not a book.
yeah, I don't write it. I don't write it twice.
It's called a notebook.
Yeah,
It becomes a book later. You don't need to do it at the
that's
start.
true.
Right. Okay, that's blown my mind. Anyway, back to the question. Eden, do you sometimes find it hard to meld the two genres together?
Yeah, definitely. I sort of get carried away with the like the horror plot, and then I suppose same as Vika, then go, oh yeah, what's happened to these two, and then have to sort of go back and make them meet each other.
It's interesting. So have you found that's got easier as you've developed more romance in the books, or has it got harder?
No, it's probably about the same, but I sort of make more of a concerted effort to go back earlier and add more of the romance. I think I find it easier sometimes to maybe just to write the main bit of the story and then kind of add in the romance or other bits and bobs,
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I'm still bad at it. So
Well, you'll get there, as long as you're not writing the whole book by hand first. Ali, we have a question in the chat. Are you going to show us one of the notebooks? Here we go.
It has to be this kind of notebook.
Okay.
And it's upside down. Whole bunch of writing.
Oh,
That's impressive. I mean, it's insane also, but I can appreciate the art behind
Yeah,
it.
but when your computer explodes, or
That did help me because actually in October it's the sequel to Beneath the Waves. And Beneath the Waves, when you click that little jump drive into and it doesn't recognize it, and you have to retype the whole book. It helps it. You wrote it out. Yeah, this is one of my new purchases. So little field notes.
right.
You're never going to fit a book in that, sweetheart. Is that for your novella that's coming up? Right, okay, enough. I will. You and I will have to talk. This is fascinating. You write an entire book. Gun, do you ever find it difficult to meld your two genres together?
A little bit, because most of my sci-fi books takes place was almost like in a military setting on a spaceship, and even if it's sci-fi, it has to be believable, the whole chain of command, so they can't be all gooey-eyed across the bridge and be all unprofessional in the middle of a battle. So you have to figure things out. And like the others have said here, VK especially, that all the nifty space battling can go on, and I just realized they haven't talked to each other for a week, and I'm like, oh wait.
Yeah.
Gotta reel them back in, gotta have some love. So yeah, it can be hard because space is so much fun.
Yeah, I can see that be quite difficult to sort of balance, especially in a military setting. Okay, so genres often have rules. I think I know where we're going with this. I can't see a law-abiding one a bit between you. So genres often have rules. For example, romances often have to end with a happy ever after or happy for now. Do your two genres, if they both have rules, do they complement each other? And I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, and I'm interested to see how you managed to make it work. VK, do your two genres, do their rules of the genres complement each other?
Well, I don't know about rules. There probably are rules, and I probably don't know what they are.
said the cop.
Yeah. Retired. That helps. But I think they do complement each other. If there were any, I think they would. Yeah, I do think that especially, well, for me anyway, because it's what I write, the romance and intrigue complement each other, because there's a break in the action and there's a break in the romance, and those can kind of flow easily into each other. And some of the action scenes and some of the things that are happening in the intrigue element can also show growth in your characters. So they kind of do blend together, and kind of, I think it works. Yeah. At least I don't find it too terribly difficult.
Well, it clearly does.
You have to tell me what the rules are first, though.
Well, some people seem to think there are rules, but apparently some rules can be broken once you know them. So
Yes, they can.
but clearly you don't know them, so
Right. Get away with it.
you just skip that step. Eden, how about you? Does horror and romance have any rules that complement each other, or are you fighting against them?
Yeah, I mean, not really. Do they? They're pretty different. I try and follow the rules of each genre, and then hope that it sort of ends up somewhere that I think people can live with. Sort of resist the temptation to kill off my main characters.
So that's called a tragedy.
Yeah.
Do that.
No, I mean, yeah, everyone likes a happy ending, right? So, and both of them generally, you want to have some sort of resolution. So yeah, I'll try and do. I'll do a happy ending and stuff, and because I like it, it's nice. But yeah, it's difficult because they're so different. The genres, like they're not, you know.
Yeah, they're not natural companions, are they?
Not really. No. No.
That's very well said.
You what, sorry?
What'd you say, VK?
I said that was very well said. They're not natural companions.
No. I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah, why did you? Yeah, never mind. It clearly works. It clearly works.
You do a good job. It really does work. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think what you say about people wanting a resolution at the end, people wanting a happy ever after. You know, at the end of the day, horror, absolutely. It depends on the kind of horror that you're talking about, but most horrors have a resolution that we can either live with or won't leave you in complete nightmares.
Yeah, I mean, like the bad guy has to die
for now.
Okay, Ali, how about you? In your writing, do you find those rules can work together, or are you fighting them?
There are rules, and the first Kane book did not follow rules. I mean, it introduced you to the two main characters that run through the book, which are Kane and Emma. They did not end up together. There's no hint that they will end up together. So I got plenty of mail. And then the reason for that was I wrote a book and turned it in, and it was like 800 pages long. And Rad told me, no, cannot do that. So we cut it into 2 books. So thankfully, in the same year, the sequels came out, and then they ended up getting together. And then this last one, I think of all the reviews that I've read, I think that's what everybody mentioned, is that this book does not follow the rules. There is not a girl meets girl, girl gets girl, girl loses girl, girl gets girl in the end, and they live happily ever after. So that it does not follow that formula. But every once in a while I'll go off the skids and try something new. So if this one didn't follow the rules, the next one sort of follows the rules. And then the one after that, called Writer's Block, there's no rule book on that one either. So you just have to see when that one comes out.
It's kind of a try as you buy. You try, and then you'll see if there's any rules in there. Yeah.
Excellent. I mean, I'm very flattered that, for the most part, people mentioned that it didn't follow the rules, but they enjoyed the book. So I guess there was that. So that was a good thing.
Well, that's
you didn't want to write it, and everybody's like, oh. Number 30 was a stinker.
Well, you clearly know what you're doing, because I mean, who needs rules? Who needs rules when you're Ali Vali? Gun, how about you? Does the rules in science fiction and romance work together, or not so much?
Well, since I mainly write space opera type of fan fiction or fiction, I think it really lends itself well to gel together, because a spaceship is like a little world, like a little micro world, and what takes place in the real world and what takes place among humans or humanoids on a spaceship, it's very much the same when it comes to personalities and their dreams and hopes, and who they fall for and what they work with and all that. So I feel very free writing the romance from that perspective with the science fiction, the type of science fiction I write anyway. So yeah, very true. Sort of very similar
themes, aren't they? Carsen, how about you? How about those rules?
Well, so I prefer to call them expectations. And because, a reader goes into a book expecting something, and I think if I'm selling them this product, then I need to give them their expectation. And one of those is that they'll get a complete story in the book. Even if it's part of a series, you buy a book, the other book's not even out yet. So, you want something complete in that. And so there needs to be some kind of I think Eden used the word resolution, and I like that. Whether or not it's the final resolution or the, happily ever after forever, may not be the case, but I think it's not, I don't think it's hard. I think the genres I write in, romance and suspense or intrigue, both of those, maybe it's not happily ever after for the suspense and intrigue, but there is some resolution in terms of the bad guy's caught, or, they won the case, or, some kind of resolution. So I find those kind of dovetail together pretty well. And for those characters that couldn't get together because they were on opposite sides, to have the resolution of the intrigue part allows them now to be together sometimes. So it really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We have another question from the audience. Cheryl asks, have any of you been asked to make your book into a movie? And I don't believe, here we go. Old 78 book Ali.
Yeah, actually, Calumet was actually a short story that I turned in, I can't even remember when it was. And it was actually made into a short film for competition called Guillory's Little Secret. So if you Google that, it's still online. It's Annabeth Gish played Guillory, who is Jackson Levine in the book. So kind of gives you a little bit of synopsis of the story. It's about maybe 15 minutes long. So,
and someone has kindly put that link in the chat.
Okay. Thank you, Wanda.
Excellent. Fantastic. Has anyone else had their book made into a movie or short film or otherwise? No, so we're all available. So if there's any filmmakers in, we're all just call us. We're here waiting.
I was on a panel with Sandra Brown a couple of years ago, back when we could be on panels in real life. and she's had a number of her books made into movies. And one of the things she said was, she goes, I hate every one of them. Movies. She goes, because I had no creative control. So I take my big check and I go to Europe or somewhere. And then I just don't ever watch it.
Perfect.
Well, something to be aware of. Okay, we have another question from the chat. We've kind of covered this, but let's go into a little bit more detail here. So have you caught yourself getting lost in the romance, or lost, and I imagine this is the direction, in the other genre, i.e. the horror or the intrigue, etc.? Have you found yourself writing and then suddenly, whoops, I've forgotten that other genre? Eden, do we start with you?
Yeah, frequently. I it's not that I forget about them, I just get sort of caught up in the horror bit and what they're doing and the action stuff, that I sort of forget that I'm supposed to make them fall in love as well. And, but yeah, so I think like I say, I sometimes it's easier to kind of write the story anyway and then go back and put the lovey-dovey stuff in, and it's nice as well, like, I don't know, it's sort of like almost like writing two little books.
Yeah, finding where they can fit in together. Yeah. Absolutely. So VK, how about you? Do you find yourself getting lost in one of your genres?
Yeah, sometimes. I spend, as I said, I'm the planner. I spend a lot of time before I actually start writing, planning, making an outline, numerous pages of outline, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm ready. I start writing, and I get probably about 3 chapters, and then these characters go off on a tangent, and it's usually the suspense portion of the tangent. So they go off on a tangent, and I'll look at it a few days later and go, that's not what's in the outline. But still, I let them run with it and, see where it goes, because a lot of times that actually turns out better than the outline. So I just keep going, and then I have to go back, as Eden says, and just fix everything and put the romance part in there that, got left by the wayside. It's a process.
I thought you were a plotter. Now you say 3 chapters in, you're gone, another direction.
3 chapters and it's over. But then it becomes a really good guide. It's no longer an outline, it's a nice guide.
Okay, so when I ask if anyone's a plotter, VK, I think you're kind of like Eden. You're one of these. You're not one of these. You're kind of my start.
I'm kind of a plotter. Yes, I'm a plotter. I consider myself definitely a plotter.
Yeah.
I
So
couldn't
you
sit
find
down with
yourself.
these other folks and just go to it. I really admire people that can do that. Just sit
Yeah.
down and start writing and it just flows. I'm like, oh, well.
There's no flowing.
You shouldn't have said that, Carsen. They thought there was a flow.
Yeah.
Flow.
Carsen, you know how the magician doesn't show you how to do the trick?
Exactly.
You go, yeah, the flow. That's
Flow.
always just flowing, not a problem. So should we go to the person who started writing the book called Writer's Block? Do you find yourself getting lost in one of the genres, Ali?
I do. I really enjoy writing the bad guy, and calling the dead and answering the call. I was reading from the bad guy's perspective at Saints and Sinners, and I remember Rad was in the audience, and she was like, "You really enjoy that, don't you?" Like coming, putting somebody like a psychopath together, and it's maybe a little bit too much. So every once in a while, you have to pull back from. And now I have a new editor that I started working with about a year and a half ago. And when I wrote, what I'm writing now is a sequel to One More Chance. And I wrote a scene in there and she's like, do we really need to see this? Yeah, I guess there is a point where you could step over the line of as far as violence is concerned. So yeah, no, you can get lost in the weeds sometimes and have to pull it back into let's buy flowers and bring them home.
Well, that's just slightly terrifying. Thanks, Matt. Gun, how about you? Do you get lost in one of the genres?
Yes, the whole science part of science fiction is a lot of fun. That's where I do my research. So I can get a bit too wrapped up in all the technology and all the nifty gizmos and all of that. And especially in the beginning of the book where you're supposed to sort of follow the romance rules, but maybe, ease them into, yeah, I get lost in the gizmos. That's what happens to me.
Yeah, well, if you have all that to play with, you would do, wouldn't you? So, yeah. Carsen, how about you? Do you find yourself getting lost in either the romance or your intrigue genres?
Yeah, I guess more the intrigue, because that's, I say it's the hardest part to work out because I'm working out as I go. But the romance is really the hardest part to work out, the feelings and flowers and candy, like Ali said. So I will do a lot of what Eden says and just go back and layer that in. Or make sure it got in there in the first place, after the fact. So I tend to focus on the intrigue because that's the more complicated part. And then go do the romance as I go, but then that's the part I have to go back and fix later.
Excellent. We have a question that's more of a statement in the Q&A from Susan, who says, do you know how much your books mean to lesbians in their 70s? Thank you all for the wonderful variety of lesbian fiction.
Oh,
so thank you, Susan, for reading.
Yeah.
We love you, Susan. Okay, so to the non-plotters and to VK, because I'm sorry, I don't think we can give you that plotter. I mean, it's not from A to Z, is it? A to B and a half. I mean, we need to. So to non-plotters, do you start writing one type of book or one genre and find another genre sneaking in? And is that how you maybe ended up melding those genres? So do you start writing one type of genre and then go, oh, I've veered off in another direction? Gun, should we start with you?
No. Short. No, I'm all sort of set, since I tend to do every other book. romance or romance sci-fi. I'm pretty set on what I want to write, and I have so many stories buzzing around in my head. It's amazing. I remember to eat. So I just sort of tick them off one by one. So I have no problems sticking to my guns. Ha, no pun intended.
Eden, how about you? Do you find you're writing one type of genre and then find another genre sneaking in?
I don't think so. I think there's maybe other things that I kind of fancy having a go at, but I don't know that I find other bits sneaking in. I guess I'm always conscious of, sort of putting the romance in and making sure that that's as strong as I can make it. Because primarily, like, what I'm writing is like a horror or a thriller or whatever it is. But I think I'm all right with sticking to what I've set out to do.
Yeah, you don't find yourself going off on a tangent too much?
I don't think so. No. I'm pretty. Which I was surprised. I would think that I would do something like that, but no.
Excellent. Well, our non-plotters are doing really well. Should we talk to our almost plotter, VK? Do you find that you're writing one type of book and genre and find other genres? You don't veer off that much?
No, not that much. I usually kind of, like I said, for the most part, I can stick to the storyline and what I'm doing. The characters may take it off on a tangent for a bit, but it's always within the same genre and the same story overall. Yeah. Stay pretty true to it.
Good. Carsen, how about you? Do you find that you go off on a tangent?
No sneaking in.
You feeling okay, honey? No, you don't.
No.
Excellent. We're all very good at behaving ourselves. Ali, how about you? Do you go into a different genre?
Yeah, every once in a while I'll write a character and be like, oh, it'd be so much easier to feed this person through a meat grinder. But we can't because it's a romance.
And it's your main character. And
exactly.
And what are rules anyway?
happily ever after doesn't mean dead.
Yeah, really. So yeah, no, it's I did ask that question though, that if I could kill one of my main characters, and I was told no. It's a tragedy. Not a romance. Can't do that.
Ever afterlife or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you need to sort of work with Eden, and then you could kill them, and then Eden could have them in the zombie side. Yeah. There's an answer to everything. You can figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, we are 5 minutes away from the end, so let's see how we can get through this last question, and then we'll do a quick little roundup of your upcoming and latest releases. So do you start with characters and then find some kind of story to put them in, or do you come up with the basic idea of the story? So do you come up with characters first or the plot first? I'm terrified to know what we're going to find here. Let's go safe. Let's go with our plotter. VK, do you start with character or plot?
What do you think?
I know this panel frightens me. It could be anything.
I definitely start with the story, with the intrigue part of the story.
Yeah.
And that, when the idea comes, I just start fiddling with it. Then the next thing I have to have is a title. I'm weird. I have to have a title before I can write the book. And then I start writing it, or I don't start writing it. I just start coming up with scenes that may possibly happen to these characters. And then I figure out, okay, who are these people? So that's the way I go to it.
Interesting. The only reason my books have titles is because Sandy asked them, like, before I've even thought about what it's really going to be about. The only reason any of my books have titles is because I eventually need to come up with one. So interesting that you need one so early on. Very dedicated of you. I like it. Carsen, how about you? Do you start with character or plot?
It varies widely. Like sometimes I'll have an idea for a story and then I think about who would be the people to carry that story. And then sometimes I think about just, oh, this kind of a person would be interesting to write about. And what kind of a situation can I throw them into? And I also I cannot even begin to think about all of that unless I have a title. It's like having a pet or a baby that, you don't have a name for it. It's like,
You gotta call it it.
Exactly. So title's very important.
Interesting.
And I get really heartbroken if I find out the title is not available or like, so I have to really research that because I get really wedded to that title.
Do you know many babies that don't have names that get you really upset?
We that's another panel entirely.
Okay, we'll park that for the next Bookathon. Eden, how about you? Eden, how about you? Is it character or plot first for you?
Yeah, I guess plot. So, for example, or like a sort of a situation like the last time I was in P-Town, I was thinking, oh, this is really nice. It's a really pretty place. And then I thought, oh, I wonder what would happen if I put a load of zombies here, or like this. My girlfriend's parents live off this long drive, and like there's always things in the bushes, and again I was like, I wonder if there's what if there was something in there that's wanted to kill me. So
I was the only person that thought like that.
Sorry.
I'm weird.
Yeah, there's a totem pole of strangeness. And you're quite near the bottom, Carsen.
Yeah, so yeah, that's it really.
It's an interesting one. I think we need a panel on how we all come up with ideas, because obviously they're very different. Gun, how about you? Is it character or plot for you?
I think plot first when it comes to sci-fi, or I should say story idea, and then characters. And before I can start anything with them, they have to have names. I don't care about the title yet, but the characters have to have names, and those names are set in stone. So
interesting. Not like that nameless baby that Carsen knows.
I don't care about the
no
character
cousin
names.
is over here. No.
Okay, Ali, how about you? Is it character or plot for you?
I would think for most, probably like 90% of them, it's the plot that comes, and then I'll build the world and then populate the people in it. And then like this last one, I think it was more character driven. Because I got the idea. I mean, I wrote the short story a long time ago, but when I went to my reunion 4 years ago, I ended up with the idea for the full book. And it was but yeah. And I think of Calumet and The Inheritance are the only two that I've actually titled. So I'm not a suck at it. Really suck at it. So I usually get a little help with the titles.
Is the meat grinder normally a character, or does that sometimes come?
The last couple of books, yeah. In the
Vito the meat grinder.
I'll have to name it in the next one.
Yeah, doesn't that needs a name? Okay, so quickly, we're going to just quickly race through. What's your latest release, either sort of upcoming or most recent, starting with Ali?
Oh, I haven't. I just pulled it up, so
yeah,
I can see it. It's Turbulent Waves. It is the sequel to Beneath the Waves. So if you enjoyed that one, it's the one about Atlantis. So they're back.
Fantastic. Gun, what's your latest release?
My latest release is A Yearning, the first one in the trilogy, taking place in the Adirondacks to begin with.
Fantastic. VK?
When in Doubt came out in June. It's about a police officer and a psychologist, and terrible things happen.
Excellent. We love terrible things happening. Carsen, how about you? Your latest release?
June release. It's called Her Consigliere. It's a mob lawyer and an undercover FBI agent.
Fantastic. And Eden?
Yeah, it's called The Quiet Village, and It came out earlier this month, and yeah, it's basically about the thing in the bushes on my girlfriend's parents' drive.
Oh, we're all worried about that now. We'll all be checking that out. Thank you so much.
Somebody at her reading said it was fucking terrifying, but it was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely do check out all the readings. They will be on Facebook and on YouTube later. Thank you so much to all our lovely panelists. Do stick around. Our next panel is going to be about historical writings, so don't miss that. So thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Amanda.
Bye.
Thank you, Amanda.